here we've got a hand cart. Normally a horse would be attached to it, but you can see it's not too far removed from the wheelbarrow we did previously. In fact, you could adapt the size and shape of the handles and the size and shape of the cart, and you could very easily create, for example, a rickshaw from the same basic outline. So again, if you recognise that these vehicles, like all the other things we've painted, are no more than a series of simple shapes put together in a particular way. Right, now I'm using the same colours on the wheels, and here, because these spokes are a little more prominent, I'm painting a hint of them in. Here's the sort of car that you find all over the world these days. It's basically one of hundreds of different types of cars and different makes, all of whom seem to have this basic sort of wedge shape. Now at the moment I'm using a mix of lemon yellow, and when that's settled in a little bit, I'll add some raw sienna here and there to give added warmth to it, because that's a little bit too lemony for the colour of a New York taxi, but it adds a little bit of brightness. And again, you notice I'm painting in the various sections of the tractor so that we have a little bit of definition in between each bit, and that you can make out which is which. Highlights. I'm just going to blot out the excess, and that will leave me with the light colour where the light is shining. Where I want something in slightly in shadow, I'll go over again, as I did with the post boxes in the previous tutorial. I'll go over with the same colour, but just it'll be 2 or 3 layers instead of just the one layer. Now it's obviously easy to paint one of those flat fronted slab sided lorries, but I always think these have much more character to them, and they're a much more handsome looking vehicle. If you can have handsome looking vehicles, well, I think this one is it. And let's have a pale blue container on the back of the trailer. You can see how, because we've got the overall picture or the drawing correct, we can just flick in almost just a few little bits of colour and it'll look right. It'll look like tyres, even though what we've painted is probably very much not like tyres. And here, the back wheels, there's hardly anything visible, so I'm almost now painting a series of straight lines or slightly curved lines for the wheels. And I'm just following the line more or less here of the way in which those big heavy treads curve over and around the wheel, and the front wheels always have, or seem to have, no tread on them, just a series of deep grooves down the centre. So we'll represent that by leaving a bit of white paint, just a tiny little touch of them there. Always a good focal point if you're doing a picture of London. You may not need to do it this big, but at least you can see how it works, because it's the bright red of the bus that is always going to catch the eye. If, for example, you did a picture of the Houses of Parliament and Westminster Bridge in front of it, then a little flash of red or two going across the bridge immediately tells the viewer that, oh, that's probably a London bus. All I'm doing is just putting a few little flicks of light in. In fact, you can leave little sort of streaks of light, as you can see like that. I've left that over, almost over the driver's area there, and not forgetting the headlights either. You can see how it's very, very quick and representational, but how much it adds to the overall atmosphere of the vehicle. And this type of car is an absolutely iconic car of the American 50s and 60s, and it almost has to be associated with people cruising down along the coast and taking the sun on a hot summer's evening. So we'll add some nice pink made by permanent rose with lots of water. I hope for some of you at least it brings back some fond memories of days gone by. Some blue-grey into the headlights, but just half the headlight, and I'm actually going to blot that out slightly, just just go back in again a little bit with a very light colour, but it just helps to give that sort of roundness and the shapeliness to the headlights, as if there's glass and a light there. Now I've painted in some masking fluid in, so that's going to give us the darkness of the grille. Now finally, I've left this little English Morris commercial van to the last. But the reason I've left this last is that my dad, when he was alive, when he was in his 30s, used to drive one of these vans for a firm called Littlewoods, and he used to deliver fruit and vegetables all over the northwest of England and North Wales. It's always stayed with me, the memory of this little green van that carried all these fruit and vegetables to the big stores around and about the north of England. Nowadays, of course, it would be frowned on, the thought of having a 5, 6, 7-year-old sitting in the front seat in the days before seat belts, and yeah, even once or twice he sort of sat me on his knee and let me steer the van. But those were the days when you could do that. There wasn't that much traffic on the road. Yeah, incidentally, these last two that I've done, you can see I've turned the wheel slightly to the right, and the same with the car, slightly to the right. And that's very, very simple. In this way, you need to do the wheel a little bit more obtuse than that wheel, and that gives that sort of angle coming to the left. This one here is almost looking straight on at the tread of the tyre. Now in this case, the wheels are turned away from me, or from your view, so they're actually going to be a little bit wider at the front than they are at the back, the opposite way around to what we have here, and a little bit wider again on this side here, and that will give you the effect of turning the wheels one way or the other. Dead easy. The mechanical nature of masking fluid has really worked in producing a distinctive looking grille on the front of the car. So it's like everything else, it's horses for courses, isn't it? There we go. You can see we've also added pink inside the wheels, and then that's left the white at the side of the wheels, which really looks like white wall tyres. I can't do everything, but hopefully I've given you enough here that'll at least get you started, or again give you some ideas for inspiration that you can use in your pictures. They all almost warrant a little picture in their own right, where buildings and trees and what have you surrounding them provide a backdrop for these as the focal point. But if not, you can do them very, very simply, as you've seen, to include as part of the picture and give it a special character. So there we are. There's a few ideas for vehicles. I hope you found that helpful.